Jets rookie mini camp is underway. The Jets have done what they do every year. They've signed a ton of undrafted free agents. We'll be recapping the Jets draft, breaking down what's happened so far in rookie minicamp, and much more. My guest is Jets content creator Matt O'Leary. Let's roll.
Jets, Jets, let's go.
Jets wide receiver Wesley Walker. Wesley, how you doing today? ESPN writer Mr. Rich Cimini, Jets reporter for The Athletic, Mr. Zach Rosenblatt, Hall of Famer and Jets legend Mr. Marty Lyons.
Your host, Connor Law.
Here we are, Sunday evening. Going to be, like I said, recapping Jets draft as I was very sick last couple of weeks, so I had to first get over my horrible cough that I had for about a week, and then catch up on all my schoolwork. So that's what the delay's been. Haven't been on for a long time, but we're worried about the present, and here we are. Let's bring on my guest, Mr. Matt O'Leary. Matt, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, Connor. Glad to see you're feeling better. I was sick too last week, so I don't know if there's something going around or the weather changes, but I was with you. I wasn't feeling so great the last week or so I know what you're going through.
Yeah, that there was definitely something going around with that cough, but let's get right into it. So obviously, the big pick of the draft was Jets selecting Olu Fashanu at pick 10, and the big question going into the draft is, will Joe Douglas go weapon or will he plan for the future? And this Olu Fashanu pick, I'm personally a fan of it. I think right now it's all about protecting Rodgers. Do everything you can to keep 8 upright. So what are your thoughts on that pick?
Yeah, I was surprised but happy with it. I think it was pretty obvious the Jets were looking at one of the big 3 wide receivers, and it seemed like that Joe Douglas was trying to call up to get up to number 8, even with Atlanta, and then they weren't moving out. Rome Odunze goes off the board at number 9, and then I think they go, all right, well, we really like this kid Olu. I think he's a left tackle of the future, and that you could have made the case for drafting Brock Bowers. Apparently he wasn't, as high up on the Jets board, which is fine. I understand why they went with Olu. I think he's going to get on the field. To those a little concerned about drafting a quote unquote backup technically this year. Unfortunately, Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses, both 33 years old, both got banged up last year. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of Fashanu this year. And I think he's a wise pick for the future of this team, as well as neither tackle is under contract after this year.
Yeah, I'm like I said, I'm a big fan of the pick. Like you mentioned, neither tackle is under contract and injuries. You got to make up for those games that those guys are going to miss. The unfortunate reality is both those guys are not playing 17 games, and the big thing for me when it comes to tackle play and injury is Tyron Smith's never missed a playoff game. So if the Jets can get into the playoffs, and Tyron Smith is healthy, I of course sign me up for that. And then obviously the Jets go out in the third. Well, staying with the Fashanu pick before we move on to Malachi Corley, Joe Douglas. I don't know if you saw the clip Jets posted on YouTube after the Jets selected Olu Fashanu. Joe Douglas was basically talking about how the Jets have had Fashanu on their radar for a long time. Douglas was saying, and Fashanu was a name like as soon as Jet fans started talking draft, which was very early this year. Fashanu was obviously a name that was coming to minds, but we're gonna move over to the third round, pick number 67, I believe it was. The Jets traded up; they were supposed to be at 72, and they traded up. They got Malachi Corley. I love Corley, the Yak King, and Joe Douglas was even saying that Woody. I think it might have been Woody I saw on the YouTube when they called Corley up, they said that they were going to tried to trade into the second round for him. And then I saw a report from Connor Hughes that stated a similar thing. I really like Corley, a guy that, fast, yards after catch. I'm a big fan of him. What are your thoughts on Corley?
Yeah, I am excited about Malachi Corley as well. Another name, as you mentioned, they were trying to trade up for him as early as around pick 45, it looked like.
Yeah.
If you watch the Flight documentary that came out from after the draft, it looked like the Jets were very, very interested in him. And it's hard not to see why. He's such a monster, as you mentioned, with the ball in his hands. I know there's some question marks about his route tree and how that converts to the next level, but I just love his demeanor with the football. He runs with a nastiness to his game. I think he's going to be a really lot of fun in this offense, right? Like you get him the ball in space. I think he's going to be a really nice check down target for Aaron Rodgers. Just get the ball out of your hand quick, get it to him in space, and let him do his thing after that. And I think a nice compliment to Garrett Wilson and Mike Williams, because a very different stylistic receiver than both those guys.
Yeah, I like Corley just because of that yak ability. And, the Jets, Nathaniel Hackett, unfortunately, I don't like it, but you always see a 3rd and 15 where the Jets will just throw like a little 2-yard bubble screen to someone. And, they do that with Malachi Corley. And, maybe that could turn into a first down or even a touchdown. So I'm a big fan of Corley. I know there are some concerns with his route running, and obviously he's coming from a smaller school. So there are some concerns with that. But Corley was another name when people started talking about pick 72 immediately. Malachi Corley was a name that caught attention. So let's move on to the 4th round. Personally, one of my favorite picks in the draft, a name that I really liked the Jets selecting, was Jordan Travis, quarterback out of Florida State. I know the injury, the this, that, but when healthy, if he can sit behind Rodgers and learn, I think this guy can be the quarterback of the future for the New York Jets. What are your thoughts on the Jordan Travis pick?
Yeah, so I think that's a really interesting one, going with a developmental guy. I was a big fan of that. The names that kept coming up: Spencer Rattler, Jordan Travis, Michael Pratt. Those were the 3 guys who seemed like probably the best fit for the Jets in that developmental role. And they went with Jordan Travis. And something Robert Saleh said in a press conference, I don't remember if it was on right after day 3 of the draft or after the rookie camps or day 1, but he mentioned the athleticism that Jordan Travis has. So I think they're really banking on that with him. And, on a very different thing that we saw with Zach Wilson and Sam Darnold, they had to get tossed in and play right away. Jordan Travis isn't going to have to play. He gets to sit behind 2 veterans. Tyrod Taylor's actually like a pretty common player comp for him. So I think he's in a really good spot where he could sit and learn for a few years. And you never know, maybe it hits and he becomes the quarterback of the future. That would be tremendous for this team.
Yeah, I really like Travis, just his ability to get out of the pocket and throw and make just a playmaker. I think he's just a really solid overall player. And then just keep going with Jet selections this year. Obviously they select Braylon Allen, the running back out of Wisconsin, and I was actually in. After the Jets selected Corley, I was in the JetCast Twitter space, and I said the Jets will select Braylon Allen tomorrow, and the Jets did select Braylon Allen, running back out of Wisconsin. I really like him. There were some, other names that were floating around were guys like Audric Estime, Bucky Irving, names like that. So, what are your thoughts on the Braylon Allen pick? I'm a big fan of Agent Zero.
Yeah, I love that number for him too as a running back. I
Yeah.
think it's going to be awesome, him rocking the 0, but a really good compliment for Breece Hall. Breece Hall is the home run hitter. And for me, Braylon Allen is going to be used down by the goal line in short yardage situations. And he is going to run, between the tackles. He's not bouncing it outside, but he's built so big, but really underrated speed, I think, for his size. I think he's going to run a little bit faster than, some will anticipate when they see how big he is, but really, really strong young kid. I think he's, the youngest player in this draft, 20 years old. Just going to be a really fun complement to this offense. He's not going to have a big role early on, which is fine, but I think he will get some situational usage. Like I said, in short yardage, they don't want to run Breece Hall 30 times a game. So he'll get his reps. And I like that it's a different style of player, and you're not kind of getting that same repetitiveness with the same type of back over and over again.
Yeah, I agree. Just the way he's built, I'm a fan of, like you mentioned. And then also, yeah, like youngest player in the NFL, actually the first NFL player to be born in 2004. But I'm a fan of the pick. I had a feeling they were going to take a running back, but it does concern me a little that right now we don't have a veteran in this running back room, and I don't think they will sign one personally. I think they should sign one, but I really don't think they will. Obviously Zeke was a name that was kind of, will the Jets go after him? Maybe he ends up returning to Dallas. So, I do hope they sign a veteran, but also they drafted the running back Isaiah Davis. So after that, I'm like, I think there's no chance that they sign a running back, a veteran running back. But Isaiah Davis, that's another selection the Jets made. What are your thoughts on that one? I'm not a big fan of that pick.
Yeah, and it's really nothing against Isaiah Davis,
Yeah.
or like I don't want to hold a
Mhm.
grudge against him because it's not his fault, but I agree with you. I don't love doubling up at running back. He's very he's very similar stylistically to what Braylon Allen is. So it feels repetitive. There were guys on the board at that time, at other areas of need that I think would have been my preferred route, whether it on the interior of the offensive line, like a Christian Mahogany who is still hanging around. They could have went back to the wide receiver well, but maybe they're higher on, their guys like Xavier Gipson and Jason Brownlee than the guys who were on the board, which is fine. I was a little surprised by that. I didn't love the logic behind it, but again, he's a big guy, kind of similar to Allen, where he's going to be short yardage. He is a good pass protector. I'll give him that. I think, he'll have a role there, but yeah, that was a little strange. I agree with you.
Yeah, and with the Jets selecting all these, Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis, they have Brees Hall and Izzy Abanikanda. Obviously, Brees Hall is going to be the home run hitter, like you mentioned, in this backfield. But now I'm curious to see where Izzy Abanikanda will stack up against these other guys because, Izzy was not involved a ton last year. I mean, even when Dalvin Cook got cut, they barely used Izzy. So where do you see him falling? I think Braylon Allen is going to be the running back too. That's just my opinion. And I think Isaiah Davis will probably be the running back for that's probably scratched around every game. And I can see Izzy kind of being that RB3 minimal to no reps.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I definitely see Allen ending up winning that RB2 job. I just think they're kind of phasing him out in a way. Like if you look at what they did on their offensive line, I think they want to be a team that's going to run more inside and like power run versus some of these, outside zone concepts that they were using more in like the Mike LaFleur era, but even last year a little bit. But they get a little bit beefier on the offensive line, get some solid run blockers in here, like John Simpson, Morgan Moses. Those are guys who I think fit that inside scheme. And then you draft two big running backs who really aren't those West Coast style backs that, hit the outside zones. So I don't know what their plan is for Izzy Abanikanda. Maybe he is someone who's going to get, phased out, but best case scenario, RB3 maybe for him. I think they will end up carrying four running backs. So I think the four guys, that are here right now end up making it. But I'm not, if you're expecting a year two Izzy breakout, I'm not there personally. I just don't think they're going to use him a ton.
Yeah, the Jets running back situation coming into this year, I'm gonna kind of compare to the Jets tight end situation they kind of had last year between all those guys. Uzama, obviously he got injured, but Conklin, Kuntz, Yaboa, that tight end factory, all those guys. So I can kind of compare that situation now to what the Jets running back room is gonna look like. But moving on to the Nets, the next Jets pick. Jets select cornerback Quantez Stiggers. What are your thoughts on the pick? Personally, you know, I don't dislike it because his story, obviously, he shared in his press conference when he really quit football and he didn't find the love and he kind of got back at it and now here he is in the NFL and I believe they drafted him from like the Canadian Football League. So that was definitely interesting. What are your thoughts on the Stiggers pick?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, really interesting story, right? Like never technically played college football, is in a fan-controlled league and then the Canadian Football League. And he's someone that I think they're going to end up planning to convert him to safety. They've done that a few times with these guys. Like they drafted Jason Pinnock a few years ago and planned to convert him to safety before he got claimed by the Giants. They drafted Jarek Bernard Converse, who was kind of like that safety corner hybrid. And I think this is kind of similar where you're getting that, athletic ball hawking corner that may end up playing some more safety at the next level. It's possible that he sticks and plays corner. Like maybe they're looking for someone to develop in case DJ Reed doesn't re-sign here after the year. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if they moved him to corner. I was fine with the pick. It wasn't like I wasn't upset with it, but it wasn't something that like crazy moved the needle for me either. It was a fine day 3 selection.
Yeah, a lot of these day 3 selections, whether it's like a Stiggers, a Davis, I really like Braylon Allen, but a lot of day 3 selections, unless it's like an absolute steal, aren't really gonna get anyone like super hype. But I always love finding like bright spots or really like breaking down these guys' film and like really finding, okay, I really like this trait in Stiggers. I really like this trait in Isaiah Davis. I really like this in Braylon Allen. But moving on, the Jets, when they traded Zach Wilson, they had to give up pick 256, and I'm happy it was not 257. So the Jets retained Mr. Irrelevant pick. And with Mr. Irrelevant, the New York Jets select Jalen Key, safety out of Alabama. What are your thoughts on the pick? Personally, I like it. The Jets have been in need of some safety depth. I put out a mock draft. I had the Jets selecting Dallas Grant, the linebacker out of Toledo. I thought they could have used some linebacker help too. But I really like the pick. Obviously it's looking like Chuck Clark, Ashton Davis, Tony Adams, and JBC. That's really our cornerback room. So if we can add a guy like Key, a really solid safety to get that late, the last pick in the draft, I'm a fan of it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. I think again, it's a position of need. It's not, it wasn't a reach. He's a little bit of an older prospect. He's played a ton at Alabama. You never know. And like literally last pick of the draft. So
Yeah.
expectations aren't very high for me. But as you said, it was a position of need for them to add some more depth at. You have Chuck Clark, you have Tony Adams, who are going to be the 2 starters. But beyond that, they don't have a ton in that room. So I wasn't really surprised to see them go that route.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, last pick of the draft, I mean, low risk, high reward. Who knows? You got to just take a flyer on someone with that pick. But just because the Jets had the last pick in the draft does not mean they are done selecting players. Obviously, the Jets are notorious for bringing in a ton of undrafted free agents every year. And, going through this list, 2 names that stick out to me the most are Pee Wee Jarrett, quarterback out of West Florida University, and that's actually a Division II school. But the Jets saw him, and he has completely raw, but just crazy, crazy arm talent. So that's what the Jets really liked in Jarrett. And another name is Patrick McSweeney. You put out a video on this earlier, but his dad unfortunately was a firefighter who died during 9/11. Kids from Staten Island. He grew up a season ticket holder. I'm really rooting for him. So thoughts on Jarrett and then McSweeney?
Yeah, I don't know a ton about the quarterback, the undrafted quarterback, but you always kind of need someone to take those reps in preseason games. Like I would be surprised if we see more than 1 drive, maybe 2 out of Aaron Rodgers the whole time. There's, in the preseason, Jordan Travis is coming off an injury, so it's kind of TBD how much he's going to play in the preseason. So you need more camp bodies, and I think he's kind of filled that role. As for the tight end, how could you not root for someone who grew up a Jets fan with that story and connection to New York? It's going to be something that a lot of fans can relate to. So it's going to be a big challenge for him to make the 53-man roster. It's a crowded tight end room to begin with, but again, an easy guy to root for, and I know he's going to be a fan favorite through training camp.
Yeah, I personally don't know a ton about Jarrett. All I know is I've heard Samini talk about him a lot, and not a lot, a little. And he said really that the Jets liked him because he has crazy arm talent and he's a completely raw prospect. And I watched about like 3 clips on him, and he seems like he has a insane arm, but a Division II guy you're just taking a shot on. And then in terms of McSweeney, like you said, hard not to root for, but I think the chances of him making this team are very, very slim. But he's like you said, going to be a fan favorite through training camp, and of course, I'm rooting for him. Everyone's rooting for him. How can you not root for Patrick McSweeney? But a name that stood out to Green Bean was Brady Latham, the offensive lineman out of Arkansas. He put out a tweet and he said something. He said that he thinks Brady Latham will beat out Xavier Newman or Jake Hansen on the 53-man roster. And Green Bean, if we listen to Green Bean in free agency or draft, the Jets would have like 20 Hall of Famers by now. So, I guess I'm on board with Brady Latham too because he's a Green Bean fan favorite. But, Matt, overall grade for the Jets draft.
Oh, yeah. Overall for the draft for me, I think I'm right around the B plus. I think it was a solid draft class. You hit on offensive line and wide receiver at the top, which I think they needed to do. Those are the two most important things I think they needed to come away with from this draft. I don't know if we'll look back on it and compare it to like the 2022 class where we're going to be like, oh, this is a historic Jets draft class, but I don't think it's going to be a bust of a draft class. I think we'll look back and be like, wow, you got like maybe 2 starters and some nice depth pieces beyond that. Like you'll sign yourself up for it. So give me B plus, above average, just solid Joe Douglas draft class for me.
B plus, a very respectable grade. I can see why, I don't understand why anyone would put it below a B. I think it's a very, very solid class. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give it an A minus. I'm going to give it an A minus because I think the Jets literally hit on every one of their needs. They got help in the secondary. They got a developmental day 3 quarterback. I think they went a little overkill on the running backs, but they got a blue chip prospect in Olu Fashanu. They got a really solid third round piece in Malachi Corley. So that's why I give it an A minus. But Matt, really appreciate you joining me. You got any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm excited, man. Like the draft, there's a lot of lead up to the draft. Now we get to break it down. You have these rookie mini camps. Sooner or later, we're going to get some OTA action in there, and then you blink and it's football season. So a lot going on. So it's going to be fun covering all that.
Definitely going to be a fun season. Everyone, thank you guys for watching. And as always, JTS, Jets, Jets, Jets.